Hi, everybody. My name's John Bell, and this is the Harbinger Report, where we discuss all the craziness going on in the world from one end to the other. And right now, there is no shortage of information or stuff to discuss. Only time. That's my only issue, trying to get everything done. Um, it takes a lot of time to do one of these shows. But anyway, look, tonight I got something a little special. I'm due to popular demand and many requests. I'm bringing back an old show that I did on my old show, Dogman Cams, and I'm bringing back an interview with the famous Vault of Nightmares. Now, for all you trolls out there, with start all the drama about Vault and stuff, um, I hope you choke on it. um, I don't back down or betray my friends. That's my rule. And and I've been accused of being what do you call it? Uh, I've been accused of being I don't know, faithful to a fault. And hey, you know what? That's not a bad thing to say about for people to say about you. I wear that as a badge of honor. Thank you very much. Unfortunately, when I had Vault on my first episode of my show, it caused a lot of drama. Um, People were claiming that he had stolen Valor and came out the woodworks and accusations and all kinds of craziness against Vault. And sadly, even a lot of Vault's own personal friends, got caught up in all that. And I think that's pretty sad. They say you know who your friends are when you're knocked down, when things are bad. I had a lot of people try to contact me about vaults, but even family members. But here's the thing: every one of those family members admitted that they were estranged. They didn't grow up with him. They only knew him from a distance. They don't know the man. They don't know what he's done. I've got family members that are the same way. They don't know almost anything about me or what's going on in my life or what's going on. We've grown up apart, sadly. I think that's a tragedy, really. And I wish I had more time to visit more kind of distant family and get to know them better. But life is life. Not like a box of chocolates. Um, but that said, I also what people don't know is I also had people that served with Vault in contracting that also contacted me, and they didn't want me to put their name or information or go public, but they confirmed. I had at least two people, at least, that confirmed that they worked with him, and they gave details. And I mean, they gave a lot of details. All right. And anytime I've ever gone back to Vault and asked him anything about any questions or accusations, which is what you should do if you're a friend, not just listen to one side, you know, um, then he's always answered those without a blink of an eye and given really good answers. So there's two sides to every story, and just because one side is louder, barking louder, doesn't mean that they're right or that there's validity to their claims. So um, I've been trying to get Vault back on. As many of you know that were fans of his, he removed himself from online after all the drama. Now it's part of it, but Really, the main reason is because he was having health issues. In fact, before he even came back on the air, he called me up asking if I would take over his show. He already had like, thousands, a few thousand followers. He's like, dude, you can just take over and take those subscribers. I said, no, thank you. I would rather build up organically on my own. And I'm not really worried about numbers or subscribers. I'm just worried about putting out content that I want to put out, and the fans I have enjoy that. So that's what I care about, you know. And I was hoping that Vault would take a break and come back, but he was telling me because of his health, he was going to have to step back. Now he ended up not doing that and coming on and with his show again when all the drama hit after that. So um unfortunately, his doctor said it was affecting his health, and he's had some complications since then. So it really saddens me because I didn't get a chance to finish the original interview that I did on episode 1 on this channel with Vault because of that. And he hasn't felt that he's well enough to or in a place that he can come back and do that yet. I'm hoping possibly in the future. But what I did do is I drug up one of my old shows and interviews that I did with Vault years ago on my old channel, Dogman Cams. And I asked Vault today if he had any problem with me, re-airing that old video. It's just an audio; it doesn't have video on it. It's just an audio. But he said no problem. So I'm going to put that out there. And like I said, anyone that gets upset about that or him being on the air, choke on it. That's the way I feel about it. It's not going to make no never mind to me, as they say. But anyway, I was quoting Con Air poorly. But anyway, Nicolas Cage. There's a few things I want to cover real quick before I start that old. Basically, it's an audio recording, but a few things I want to show real quickly here, just to briefly cover some of the news topics that we've covered before and stuff that might possibly be new on that. Okay, so one shows I did a while back was Energy Weapons with my buddy Sean Starr. He was a great guy. I love having him on. And he's doing great with his shows right now. You can find him on X, and he's still working with the Paladin Network as well that he's helping to start. So you can look that up there. He's also on TikTok. I don't know if he's on YouTube. I imagine he is, but I've never looked for him there. But anyway, here's a quick video that a friend of mine sent me of an energy weapon being used right here in the state of Louisiana. So let's show that. So these are the new advanced weapon systems that our trusted government has right now. The new toys they have to play with. Just ask the people in Maui. All right, and not just Maui, in Canada, and there was another place in like Finland or something around the same time that the same things happened to. So they have the capability of putting these things on planes. They have the capability of having satellites shoot these things down from space. And they can target them anywhere they want. And they can blame it on natural disasters. Maui was not a natural disaster, especially how all the super elites there were painting all their roofs blue, UN colored blue. And their houses didn't burn down, like everybody else. So, and you don't hear anything coming out of Maui now. What's happened there? I mean, they basically just stole all that from the people, from the land, and everything else. And no telling how many people are missing, especially children. I mean, there was a count of like a couple of thousand children that were missing that I don't believe were accounted for in that whole mess. So that's horrible. Here's another video buddy sent to me. Now this is crazy. This is a UFO type incident that eats up a military Chinook. Now I know Chinooks well. When I served in the military, we flew in Chinooks all the time. I've jumped out of several Chinooks. I know them. And when you're the first man out the stick out the door, it's a whole lot easier to follow a train of people to jump out a plane. But when you're the guy standing in the doorway and they say go, that's a huge pucker factor, I tell you. And you're sitting there, I'm making peace with God at that moment because you don't know what's going to happen. Anyway, check this out. This is crazy.
UFO orb swallows a Chinook helicopter in broad daylight.
Something happened to it.
UFO orb swallows a Chinook helicopter in broad daylight.
I would argue that's also advanced technology, more than likely our technology, as opposed to, say, alien. Um, but that would be advanced technology we have. Remember the Malaysian flight where now they actually have footage? It's funny when that Malaysian flight hit, my intuition told me that it was taken into like another dimension. And my intuition always said that. My intuition is very strong. And sure enough, footage came out later of a similar thing where these three little orbs were circling around the Malaysian airliner flight. And then it opened up like a portal and then it went through and boom, disappeared. So there's actually footage of that that's out there now. I think I might have played it on an older episode of on my channel, I think. But anyway, if not, I'll try to do it in the future. I'm pretty sure I did. It's been a while. But that said, it's just crazy the stuff that we have now. I remember listening to a general one time that said, "Man, if you saw the technology that we have today, you wouldn't believe it, even if you saw it. If you were there watching it, you wouldn't believe it." So we've got some high crazy. All right. Now, one last thing I wanted to talk about, and I'll start Volt's interview, which I'm excited about. Um, I've been his story is one of my favorite Dogman encounters I've ever heard, and I could tell the whole story myself from start to finish. But I think it'd be better to hear his take on it, and I could always add to it in time because you get caught up in the moment, and there's always parts that kind of get left out for getting distracted or questions or whatever, or you're just focusing on different areas. So, but anyway, one thing I want to point out is so people have an understanding. One big topic that we cover on the show is that there are different types of dogmen, right? And I personally don't follow the whole variant form that was the big thing in the dogman community back in the day. But I do subscribe to Jeff Nadalny's on Jeff's channel. And I suggest you go check out my buddy Jeff, great guy, and has a really good channel on Dogman stories. Does a fantastic job. But he had a source that claimed his name was Victor, was the name he went by, and claimed that he worked for the government and worked in breeding programs to for super soldier programs to create these creatures. He claimed that there are two basic types of dogmen. One is the one that we're most common with, the most common with that we speak about all the time, and it basically looks like a almost like a wolf that happens to be able to stand on two legs, but it still has a wolf tail. It has the backward haunched knees like a canine does, and it has a very long protruded snout. The ears also tend to be higher up on the head and larger. So that would be the concept of a dog man, all right? And they run in packs, according to Victor. But there's another type, Victor said, that's more akin to what they call a werewolf. Now, this is a Hollywood studio, um, um, model, for lack of a better word. It still might have a protruded snout, but usually isn't as long as the dog man. The ears are further down on the head as opposed to right on the top and like an antenna, and it has knees that are like human knees. Okay. So those are some of the characteristic differences. Now, according to Victor, the he calls this a werewolf and he calls the other a dog man. Now, the dog man, like I said, run in packs, tend to run in packs. You see one, there's usually more of them. And they're extremely aggressive. Um, and very dangerous, and they're intelligent, like problem solving intelligent, like know how to get in your house intelligent, but they're not like as intelligent supposedly as we are. All right. Whereas the werewolf on the other hand is supposed to be, he's more nomad or solitary. He doesn't travel in packs unless he has a basically female and brood of spawn, cubs, kids, whatever you want to call it, pups. But he says that the werewolf is much stronger. It's a more intelligent. It's stronger. In a straight up fight of a werewolf versus a dog man, they say the werewolf hands down will win every time. However, what makes the dog man more formidable or is that again they're in numbers. So um, you can be a Billy Badass. When you're surrounded by multiple numbers, that badassness factor kind of goes down. um, so that's kind of a take on the two. And also, unlike the movies, for those that might be newer to this topic, um, the werewolves here that we're referring to, they do not transform from humans, but there is a race of creature that, for lack of a better word, looks like a werewolf. All right. And that's what they call it. Like I often talk about right here in Louisiana, Ruglaroo. Okay. Um, these are stories of these things in Louisiana that go back to the 1800s or before, where the Cajuns have a name for this creature because they say they saw them in the swamps, that they were a real thing. And it goes all the way back to the Louisiana Purchase. All right. So not a new thing. Um, Before I showed, there's this image in England of a what looks to be more like a werewolf, um, encased in a museum. All right, it still has a protruding snout, not as long. The ears further down on the side instead of like on top of the head. They don't show the whole body here, but yeah, this is a museum piece in England. Now, I bring all this up because in Vault's story, and I don't know how much he gets into in this one because I haven't heard the full interview in a while. It's been years. Um, he saw two different creatures. He was essentially, I'll tell you a little bit of the story just as a preview. he was driving home from a family reunion one night in the back roads, and he and his wife at the time saw this creature sitting on the side of the road, and he said it looked like a normal wolf, except it was bigger than their car they were in. And this thing started charging at him. I don't know if it was on four legs or two legs, but he was flooring it because he's like, this thing's trying to intercept us. It was coming at an angle and it was trying to intercept the car. And he's flooring, and they're not in a very, he was in his wife's car. It wasn't a very fast, I think it was, I don't know, like a Kia or something. It wasn't like a fancy car by any means. So but he has that metal, to the floor, trying to get ahead of this thing as best he can. Everyone in the car ends up seeing this thing and starts screaming at the top of their lungs. He's trying to get him out. And he says it just passed him. It just got past it. And his wife later had to tell him to slow down or they were going to get in a wreck because he was still at full speed down the road. And these aren't great roads at night. So um, he said he just missed him, but he's trying to rack his brain thinking, why was this thing trying to charge the car? And like you said, it was bigger than the car was, or at least as big, if but not bigger. I think it was taller, even on all fours, than the car. Um, and he said that this thing's dangerous, and it pissed him off, and so he had just retired from contracting, so he called up some of his team that were in Europe at the time, but flew into the U.S. and joined him, and they went out and hunt in search of this creature. And just to keep a long story short, they ended up finding a creature in the woods, but it wasn't the same. The one they found wasn't a dog man; it was more of a werewolf type. All right, and Vault was amazed that he was like, I swear this thing had military training. Now, I knew more about this topic in some ways than Vault had known. He had not heard of the werewolf versus dogman before. But when I told him to that, he was like, that makes total sense because I saw both kinds. And then also, I told him, he's like, what blew my mind is this thing had military training. He's like, I could tell this thing had military training. It knew military tactics. And he's like, it caught us in crossfire, so we couldn't shoot at it. He was like, this thing was trained. And again, he didn't know a Victor story. And I told him about Victor that claims that in the programs, they do train these creatures for military purposes to different degrees. I mean, Victor said they trained them to be able to take out invading militaries. However, I think they lied to Victor, and I think they're used for other purposes, mainly for what you hear of as Agenda 21, renamed Agenda 2030. All right. Where is an Agenda 21? This was created in the Club of Rome back in the day, and every state has it, and every country has it around the world. Under Agenda 21, and tell me if this doesn't sound familiar or not, they want to remove all people from wilderness areas where they're self sufficient. And they want to force everybody into the 15-minute smart cities where you can be chipped, tracked, and controlled in everything you do. Slavery. All right. So I think they're releasing these creatures in the wild because most of the stories I've heard from people that have encounters with these things that live in the wild, they're like, hey, man, after dealing with this thing, we packed up our bags and we moved to the city. And you know what? Mission accomplished. I think that's exactly the reason why, or one of the main reasons, doesn't necessarily mean it's the only reason, but one of the main reasons why our government are creating these things and releasing them into wilderness areas, especially state parks, national parks, and rural areas. And they admit that they're releasing those there. So from the people that are inside, like Victor. So I think Victor was even being lied to. I mean, he's a hardcore Marine guy that's, bleeds red, white, and blue. And that's awesome. But it's also easy to manipulate. And I always wanted to try and talk to Victor and talk to him about that. But I never ended up getting the chance to do so. But anyway, without further, so one thing I wanted to tell you was now what Vault says that the encounter he had with the second creature, and I'll let him describe that. He said he said it most resembled a he said it most resembled a movie prop from the movie Dog Soldiers. So I don't know if you guys have seen this. I'm sure a lot of you have. It's a great movie, low budget film, but fantastic, amazing movie. So if you haven't seen it, go get it. Go get it tonight. um, Halloween's coming up soon. At least Cracker Barrel thinks so. Went there for lunch today, and they already had all their Halloween stuff up. I was laughing. I took pictures, sent it out to people. I'm like, this is crazy. It's like 3-4 months away. Anyway, so Vol said the creature he saw most resembled the props used in this movie. Now, this does have a more elongated snout, but he said this is what the creature looked like. The best that he's seen from images. All right, and one thing to point out. Okay, so this has like human style legs. He said it was very thin, like this, muscular. Didn't have a whole lot of hair, I don't believe. But one thing he pointed out was it had a very large mane, like a lion's mane at the top. The hands were the same. Um, but again, it's still more like this style than it is like this style. So still we believe is a dog man. I mean a werewolf as opposed to a dog man that he encountered that night. So anyway, without further ado, let's get to the story, and hopefully I try to cue it up. Hopefully it starts the right place and we can be drama free. So let's try and pull that up now. Roll that beautiful bean footage. Introduce yourself.
What's up, everybody? Glad to be here, man. And like I said, me and Bill have been talking back and forth for a good while now. And for the people that don't know, Bill actually came down to Vault's neck of the woods. We met up, talked for a while, and had a good time.
Yep, absolutely.
And I want to do this before we get started because some people had a problem with this on, like you said, on Jeff's show. I know you called me famous. I don't consider myself famous. I'm just a goofball that grew up in the woods with all this stuff going on around him that I thought was normal to everybody else. But I wanted to tell anybody that I offend before I offend them in any kind of way. However, I'm sorry. I will try to watch my language, but when I get to talking, y'all have to understand this is me. This is the way I talk. That's how you know you're getting actually Vault. Because, like I said, that's me. You can ask Mr. Bell, whatever. Whether I'm standing in front of you, I'm standing in front of a banker, I'm standing in front of whoever. I talk the same way. I don't act any different, unless you make me mad.
Right.
We won't tell that story, John. But like I said,
Dark Waters describes Vault as a man with no filter.
No, I have no filter, and like I said, I'm sorry for that. But like I said, how I am on these shows, you can ask John. I'm like that in real life. It doesn't matter. If anything else, I'm actually probably a little more colorful. But like I said, I want to apologize to anybody I offend. I will try to watch the language. If it gets carried away, I apologize now. Therefore, here we go. And John, like I said, I'm in your house, John. So you tell me what you want to do.
I've been super busy this week, and I have not had a chance to listen to the show you did with Jeff, which I'm excited to do. But so we might cover some of the same ground because there's certain direction I want to go. And one of the things I would love to hear about is just a short biography for those that don't know you or might be new listeners of how you got into becoming a contractor.
Well, how I became a contractor, like I said, is unique. Most people that became contractors have a prior military background. I didn't fall that way. I did go through the boot camp and stuff like that, but I didn't actually get to get finished because of who my dad was, my uncle was, and my grandfather is. It opened unique doors for me because they have a unique background. They're pretty well known. I do not give out their names. John, you know what I'm talking about. And you know why I don't
Right.
give out their names. I'm me, and I go off of me. I don't try to go off of anybody else. But like I said, that's what got me in the door. And when I got my foot in the door, I just had a unique talent to do what they wanted done and what needed to be done. And I've been all over the world. I've been all over the place. I've guarded everything from literally, we guarded an outhouse and a runway one time in the middle of, I have no idea. They dropped us off there and left us to, I've done 2 trips to the White House. So,
You guarded an outhouse on a runway.
there was a runway and an outhouse there, and I can tell you this: we were somewhere tropical because there were they're not banana trees. What do they call them? Bentane.
Yeah. They're like the little baby versions of bananas.
Yeah, those things were all over the freaking place. So we were somewhere tropical.
That's
I don't know exactly. Yeah, I got a pretty good idea of where we were, but like I said, I don't know.
Right.
Where exactly we were. They brought us in on a chopper and had us set up, and some guys come in, did what they did, and later on they come back in and picked us up. We were just there to make sure that nobody interrupted the meeting.
Right.
So I said, what was said, what went on, and that's as far into that as I'm going to go. Because like I said, like I said, being a contractor, I work with one of the, well, actually, they are now the largest private military in the world.
We don't need to go there.
I'm not going to say any names because, like I said, I don't want. This ain't my house, so I don't drop any names when I'm at somebody else's when I'm visiting.
Right.
But like I said,
needless to say, one of the main contracting groups out there.
Yes, they're well known. They were well known in Afghanistan because I don't think it was 3 actually over there. Two of them only actually did what they call assault contracts.
Right.
And the company I worked for was one of those. And like I said, well, they have to do some legwork if they want to figure it out.
Right.
Now that's one thing that I don't tell before people start messaging you or leaving comments. I do not give locations. And I do change. If I say a name, it's because I've changed that name from the person that was at that place, because the stuff and the places I go to are not for the faint of heart. And yeah, I put myself in stupid situations. I'm my own worst enemy. I do not want to put anybody else in danger or in jeopardy. That's one of the reasons. Well, hey, you volunteered. That's the you volunteered to follow me around.
We're trying to go do a hunt together, so I can basically just. I'm interested in learning sign.
Now that's another thing. Some people have kind of went after me because, like the word you just used, to hunt. And when we say hunt, it's hunting for evidence. I want people to understand that I have no intention of no kind to try to harm, kill, or capture a dog man, a Bigfoot, a lizard man. No, I'm there to try to figure out why they do the things they do. Now, I will protect myself and anybody that is with me. I have had to do that in the past.
Right.
But like I said, that's not what we're going after.
That's a very good point. And also, just officially for the record, since you brought that up, dogmancams.com also has the exact same philosophy or approach to this. When we talk about hunting, we are specifically talking about looking for evidence or learning sign for tracking purposes, for the purpose of looking for evidence or trying to help people or to do an investigation. And that is it. When we refer to hunting, we do not mean putting crosshairs or a weapon towards one of these creatures in any kind. And I have no desire to harm any of these creatures in any which way, unless it's trying to defend life. And that's the only
exactly. Now, like I said, the evidence is out there.
Yes.
And people have been asking me and Darkwater since I got on this, hey, we want to see some pictures. We want to see some evidence. That's where he got the idea for this Dogman Cams thing that you and him started up, is because people kept wanting that. And what better way to get it? Because, like I said, with that camera running 24 hours a day on a site that we know there's activity, like the one that I've got in Taylor, you get, if it's there, you get it. If it's not there, you don't get it. 24 hours a day that camera runs. There's nobody has been seen on that Taylor camera. You didn't even see me when I went out there to put it up. You haven't seen me since I've been out there, except for one time when I wanted you to see me. When I went out there to get a side-by-side comparison of where y'all had got this picture from, and according to DW, so I still haven't even seen that. He said I look like a Tic Tac compared to how big this thing was.
That we saw out there, right?
Yeah. See, I hadn't even got to see that, folks. So, like I said, I went to about where he told me to go to. And like I said, he said I look like a Tic Tac compared to the size of that. So that right there is the other thing that we're doing. Is like I said, that camera's stationary. It's not like where you're taking somebody took a picture. Now we're trying to take another camera and go show you the different size comparison. That camera is stationary. It's in the same place all the time. When we catch or something out there, I can go back when I have time and when I'm around, can go back there and get in about the same area. That gives you a reference. Stuff like that's what we're trying to do. Because if this thing is like 3 times bigger than me, there ain't that many humans on this planet that are actually that big in real life. So unless one of those 1 out of 1,000 mysteriously wandered out there where it is, there's so many have to line up things for a person to be out there. It's just not real. It's too unfeasible. It makes more sense for it to be a cryptid than it is to be a person because of where this camera is.
Right. Absolutely. So yeah, you got into contracting and not the normal way, for lack of a better word.
Yes.
I find that very interesting. Most people don't know that 9 times out of 10 it comes from special forces military groups and units like the one I served in. A lot of those guys are contractors now, but that's not always the route in. Usually you have to have some other extreme skills or high level connections to get into that kind of work. I know there was a UFC fighter who trained with a bunch of contractors to the point that they vouched for him and he got into it and he became a contractor. But foreign militaries now, they train their own contractors without having a specific military background a lot of times too. You find
they also did. So that's the other unique thing that I was able to do, was go around to different countries and organizations and train with those where they won't train regular U.S. forces. And because we shared some of our training, they shared some of their training with us, vice versa. And the baddest people on the planet that besides our U.S. special forces I've trained with, is the Israelis. Those people are freaking nuts.
You're referring to the Mossad?
Yes, sir.
Yep. I have known some of those guys, and I tell you what, they're top notch.
And it doesn't make a difference, female or male. Some of the actual most dangerous ones are the females, because they're so underestimated by other, like most other countries, and most men underestimate them, and that is a very bad idea.
Yeah, I've known some Mossad agents in the special forces field. The British SAS are considered the highest form, and the U.S. modeled themselves off of that, the British SAS. But yeah, the Mossad, they're a special group, and the thing is, Israel was surrounded by enemies on all sides, so they set out to do a training program that of stuff that's hardcore stuff that works, and they created a mix match hodgepodge from everything out there, and came up with their style of martial arts called Krav Maga. And one of the great things about Krav Maga is it's the only martial art that teaches you to really fight multiple opponents at one time. Just about every other martial art, if you're outnumbered, they say run. because you're at an extreme disadvantage. But Krav Maga actually is the only one that I know of that actually specifically trains for multiple combatants, multiple attackers at
Yep,
once.
that's one of the reasons they sent us over to study with them. Is that's one of the things that they were teaching us. And for the people that don't know, when you're actually taught real, now there's actually a couple different versions of Krav Maga, but the Israeli military fighting forces, the Krav Maga that they use, and I don't, like I said, I'm not exactly sure the technical term that like UFC fighters and stuff that like that use for it. What they teach is not, it's not for rings. It is meant to
It's meant to kill.
It's meant to disable and your assailant to the point where they are not able to fight anymore, whatever means necessary.
Right. And that's the whole philosophy behind the art. Yeah.
Like I said, now you have some USC fighters that have been trained in a certain form of Krav Maga, especially some of the joint locks and stuff. They're as bad, if worse, than judos.
Right.
And
yeah, I'll tell you. After studying, I spoke with the head guy out of New York for Krav Maga representative for the U.S. I ordered his training program at one point and talked to him. And after watching the series, what impressed me the most is, man, I like it, very impressive, but man, they ripped a lot of stuff off of Bruce Lee's Jeet Kune Do.
Mm-hmm. Well, what they did was they took multiple different martial arts
and
combined them to the point where they had something that's totally unique and new, because they would take out things that, well, like I said, think of the move in a martial, in let's say judo, one of the worst moves that you can do on somebody. They took out all the pre-steps and all the steps afterwards just to focus on that move, because that's what they were interested in.
It makes a lot of sense because, I mean, I grew up taking Kung Fu. I took karate. And most of that stuff, you get in a real fight, you're going to get your butt kicked. All right.
Yeah, it's not meant for street fighting.
It's not right. It's not meant for street fighting. I studied boxing, and then after that, I trained in jiu-jitsu. Now, you want to take boxing and jiu-jitsu, day one, those both work in a street fight. All right. And that's a perfect combination. That, or if you wanted to add, say, even Muay Thai with jiu-jitsu, that's like a perfect combination for stand up and ground game. But even then, they don't teach to fight multiple combatants. But yeah, moving on from Krav Maga, the Mossad, they're squared away soldiers. I've also studied a lot of their combat medic tactics and stuff for some of their newer stuff, and it's impressive stuff as well.
And some people that hear this, they want to question, why did y'all train with so many different people? It's because depending on what they were wanting to teach us for whatever we were doing, they go to the people that are the best at it. Like I know a lot of people have heard of Rolling Thunder. I've been to like 8 classes at Rolling Thunder.
Right.
The week-long classes. So it's not, like I said, the advanced class, but Rolling Thunder is one of the best private training grounds that you could go to, because they come up with some scenarios and some stuff that would just blow your mind. You don't really think of it.
Right.
Like I said, now they have some instructors there and some guys that come in to help special instruct. I'm not going to mention any names because some of them are frowned upon, some of them are not. But a lot of the guys, most of the guys that I met out there were, like I said, if I was in a bad situation, I wouldn't hesitate to call them.
Right. Well, and see, that's another misnomer. In the special forces community, people think Navy SEALs, Green Berets, that they're expert hand-to-hand combatants, and that's not really the case. They're taught some moves in their training that are very effective and work very effectively in certain situations. For example, removing a sentry. Right. That said, though, most of their combat training is geared towards weapons, not towards hand-to-hand. So a lot of times, these guys will put up their own money and hire these expert trainers like Rolling Thunder and groups like that, privatized contractors, to come in and teach them to hone their skills.
Yep.
No, that's something else. But anyway,
So you're the first person that really has asked any of my background like that. So my hat's off to you coming out of the box, thinking of some unique things that people haven't asked me. But
sure.
like I said, I've been interviewed by a bunch of different people. I've had a bunch of shows, and this is something I didn't really touch on on any of my shows. I just didn't think nobody was really interested in it.
Right. Well, I'm thinking for a new audience member that might not know your story, and how you got there, and a lot of people don't understand what a contractor is. And when we say contractor, most people think of, people that build like buildings and stuff or houses. And when we're referring to contractor here, we mean basically military style contractors, which they're professional soldiers. And a lot of times after special forces soldiers retire, they have all this training and all this skill, and they want to apply it to another job field and continue doing what they were trained to do. And there's been a lot of privatized military and security forces that have popped up around the world to fill specific needs. And that's created this new area of operators, contractors, operators, tier one soldiers, support and security teams. And that's what we're referring to. And Vault here has been a part of some of the biggest companies out there, and has been involved in some of the biggest security places you can imagine, like Area 51.
Yeah, I've been a security officer at Area 51.
On the surface level.
Yeah, on the surface level. Now, I never got to go past about the third level underground, and I don't know exactly how deep. We were told it was like 20 something levels down there. I don't really know. It could have been 40. About the
Right.
third level, as far as I can remember back going down. And trust me, if you're not supposed to be in the area, you're not getting in that area. If you do, you better have some good explanation of how you got there and why you're there.
They say that they have sensors out there that can actually smell you.
Let's put it this way: they know if a groundhog moves into the area and farts.
Right. Right.
You're not for the people that have thought of and want to go there.
Right.
Stay outside the fence, and trust me, they know well before you get anywhere near. Well before you get anywhere near any of the fence locations that you're in the area, and they know they can tell if your intentions is to get closer, or if you don't know how many people actually get lost out there and wander around and get found. Right. And people are always, to give people an idea, if you watch anything about Area 51 that somebody has went up to one of the gates or whatever, why do you think those trucks are sitting there waiting on them when they get there? It's because they knew they were coming well before they even got there. So that's not an area you go play around, because they do have orders to shoot, not warning shots, but shoot you to kill you.
Shoot to kill, and there's signs stating
that everywhere. Yeah, and they don't just put that out just for craps and giggles.
I've done a bunch of research about Area 51, and I've listened to a lot of whistleblower testimony. And I asked Vault some of the questions that I knew were specific to that place that only someone that would be there would know of. And Vault answered my questions perfectly. So it really absolutely made me believe that he was telling the truth as far as that story. So I felt like I partially was able to verify that. So that was neat. I won't mention what that was, but that was interesting. Vault's also done security on Skinwalker Ranch.
Matter of fact, when we left our detail at Area 51, we were sent straight over to Skinwalker. That was right after, what's his name, Bigelow?
Right.
His name is Bigelow bought it. Yeah, when he first bought it, for about 2 or 3 months, they were having problems where all I can tell you is what I remember and what I was told was some of it was local, that people were trying to sneak onto the place and stuff like that, and they were interrupting scientific studies and stuff that were going on. And then there was some other crazy stuff that was going on that you've heard multiple times about cattle being mutilated and
Right.
the lights and stuff like that. And some of that stuff was they were trying to scientifically test, but they were having problems with people sneaking onto the place, and they didn't know if that was, interfering with it or something else. So Biggie Low got a hold of uh, some department with a three letter name,
Right.
and
So we
we
won't
got
miss.
sent out. Yeah, we got sent out there to set up security, set up a secure perimeter. We set a perimeter and security system up exactly to mimic like they had at Area 51.
Okay.
Because, and the reason behind that was, like I said, it was such a success there. So, we got all these scientific tests being done or trying to be done there. Why not shrink it and use it there? That's
Right.
why, like I said, when I say I've even guarded cows. They had cows they had little pens set up, and at the end of the pen, there would be a guard shack about 15, I'm gonna say feet, 15 or so feet in the air. Three
Right.
guys would sit in that thing, and like I said, I've even guarded. Like I said, when I say I've guarded everything, I've guarded just about cows, and we've had cows go missing. Now I wasn't there during when the time the cows went missing. I was there doing a guard, as a guard one night when we had some sheep come up missing. When
Hmm.
I say missing, they were there. We were standing there talking. We heard a weird noise. We did not see a light or nothing. There were 5 sheep. That's how I know they went missing. Now, there's a 20-foot fence, cyclone fence, all the way around this thing, and it's
Right.
barbed wire facing out and in at the top. So it's what, 23 feet tall, actually? Well, if you go to the top of the barbed wire, not to the top of the fence, but to the barbed wire, and the only way to go in and out the opening, you had to go under the guardhouse.
Right.
So they couldn't get in like that. The fence wasn't cut. We're standing there, 3 of us standing there talking. We hear this odd hum noise, click noise. It's like a hum click together. And we start shining the light out, but it sounded like it was coming from away from us. We
Hmm.
shined the light out. Now, when I talk about a light, these are huge lights. I'm talking about they're probably 1.5 feet, 16 inches, whatever, across, circular. I don't know how many lumens they were, but it looked like it turned night into day, and it would just shoot across there. Just think of a spotlight, but ginormous. Like they use for movie premieres and stuff like that. We're talking
Right.
about spotlights that give off light like that.
Right.
We're shining out, and all of a sudden, one of the other guys turns around and looks. He goes, "Where'd 3 of them go?" I won't never forget that. Where'd 3 of them go? And I turned around and said, "What the hell are you talking about?" He said, "There's only 2 goats in the pen." Turn
Right.
back around. I turned back around. We're looking over. Yeah, it went from 5 to 2. So 3 of them missing. We get down, go inside the pen, and go all the way around that sucker. And there is nowhere for them to have got out. There's no holes. There's no loose. I don't know where they went.
Right.
They were there, then they wasn't there.
And they wasn't there. That's
Yeah,
crazy.
yeah. Like I said, I seen that with my own eyes. So
How about the
I,
story where you're walking with another security personnel, and all of a sudden you see this giant, what looks like a turkey track that's like 19 inches
oh
wide.
yeah, we were on the very back side of where Bigelow's property actually. See, Skinwalker Ranch is actually bigger than what most people think. Skinwalker Ranch has been bits and pieces have been sold here and there, and the actually military owns a good portion of it now. The what's called the backside, there's a backside with a bluff up there. It's probably 30-foot tall sheer wall that goes up over to a bluff, then it goes out into the middle of nowhere into the desert. Well, we kept seeing lights flashing coming back and forth through there, so we were sent out to go figure out what those lights were. Now, this is probably 3, 4 o'clock in the morning when we started. We're walking, we're not riding, we're walking because we're trying to be quiet. We're trying to sneak up to figure out if it's somebody out there with big, large lights or what is it. We're going along there now. It's done got daylight. It's probably 10 o'clock in the morning or so. We're going through there, and all of a sudden we come up on, it looks like, when I say giant freaking turkey tracks, I'm talking about giant freaking turkey tracks. I'm talking about huge. And I'm like, what the hell? And one of the other guys that had been there longer than I have, he goes, man, that's just a mini T-Rex tracks. He said, we ain't worried about that. I'm turning to look, and I said, that's what? He said, that's the mini T-Rex tracks. You talking about a dinosaur, like, he goes, yeah, they're mini T-Rexes.
I'd be like, man, you can't just drop a bomb like that.
Oh, I'm looking at him. I'm looking at him like, you're serious. Because this looks like cartoon. I'm talking about, this is crazy. Because it ain't just a few of them. They go off in the desert.
Right.
And like I said, these things are huge. I'm talking about huge. Think of something when he says mini, that when we started pressing for answers, the one that they saw from the air, a pilot had seen, he said it had to be about 12 foot tall. And I said, that gives you an idea. Yeah, about 12 foot tall. And they called it a mini. I'm thinking, well, if that fucker's a mini, what's the big one look like?
Right.
Nobody said nothing about no big one. But yeah, he goes, he asked a mini T-Rex, and he was just like he was talking about ordering a cheeseburger. And I'm looking at him like, what the hell have you been smoking?
And there's a distinction here between the mini 12-foot T-Rex, because there's also several sightings of velociraptors, correct?
Yeah, they call them Thunderbirds. It's, man, there's so much weird stuff out there that, and see, that right there goes back to the Four Corners Nation stuff. And you've got stuff that has been reported of birds the size of a Cessna.
Right.
And like I said, you got the mini T-Rexes, and then you got other things that supposedly there's giant freaking lizards that run around there, iguanas that are 8 foot long, and not iguanas. What the hell is that damn lizard? That desert lizard they got out there, but it looks just like it, but it's like the horn-toed lizard. No, the horn-toed. No, the horn-toed. Yeah, okay. It's actually native there, but they said there's one lizard there that I don't know what happened to it. I ain't got to see it, but the two of the guys that told me about it, I believed them because they had no reason to lie to me, and they never told me anything different otherwise. They said that they seen one that was 8 foot long.
Wow.
A horn-toad.
That's crazy.
Then they were telling me about, people probably don't know this if they haven't been around a desert. You have what's called a desert wasp.
Mm-hmm.
They were desert wasps now I've seen pictures of them. This lady is holding a dead desert wasp up, and she's got it in both hands, and it's as big as her chest, with the wings stretched out.
Holy cow.
Yeah, that's I'm talking, you're talking about like movie. Yeah, I was like, man, I was so glad when we got to leave Skinwalker Ranch out there, because stuff just didn't make sense. You think of stuff that you see in a Godzilla movie because radiation has done it. Yes, we're talking about goofy crap like that. And then you got, that ain't even counting the weird orbs of light that would just show up out of nowhere. And they were orbs of light because you could see them. They would be anywhere from 40 to 50 feet out in front of you. They would just appear, be about the size of a basketball. They could be 3 foot across. It would be different colors. It wasn't just one kind of color or whatever. They would move around like it had intelligence to it, because it would move left, right. If you tried to get closer to it, it would move away from you, move up. If you pointed a weapon at it, it would just zip off. Just weird stuff like that. Yeah, it was. And I don't know if it's something that they were testing, that they were in just messing with us with it, because they had drones that I had never seen before that they were using out there. Stuff that is common now, but I'm talking to see a drone that had that's as big as the bed of a F-150 truck that has 12 rotor blades across the top of it, and it goes out there and does all kind of weird stuff. And most of the time what they were using those for is to carry payloads up different levels in the atmosphere to test the atmosphere levels and stuff like that. But at the time, those were not common. And to see
Right.
something like that was just oddball.
Right. Right. Yeah, I heard Mr. Bigelow give Bigelow Aerospace. He
Hmm.
made his money they went selling hotels and casinos and stuff out of Vegas, but and was always interested in UFOs. And also, when he heard about the activity going on with Skinwalker, he bought the ranch. But he ended up getting involved with the military that started sending people out there to do investigations and teams, et cetera, et cetera. And he sold it since, or at least part of it, to a new owner now that they're trying to keep on the down low as to who the new owner is. But
Well,
um, that said, I
the
heard him. What's that?
the guy that is out there now that is actually head of security for the new guy. I don't know the new guy. I don't even know his freaking name. The guy that's over the security now, I actually worked with him out when I was out there. He was low man on totem pole, I guess you could say, like I was. His name
Right.
is Red.
Okay.
He's actually the head of security out there now, and I haven't talked to him in several years now. It's probably 3 or 4 years, but he says it's still. The last time I talked to him, he's like, man, it's still the crazy crap that goes on. That the other thing is, you were not allowed to dig out there on that property.
Yeah, they actually had it in a contract when they sold the property.
Yes, you're not
That
allowed
you
to dig.
weren't
You
allowed
want to
to
get
dig.
your ass in some trouble? Go out
Right.
there with a shovel.
Now,
Yeah,
why in the
that's a.
world do you think that would be the case?
I don't know. I'm talking about because we wouldn't. We were not allowed to dig anything. Everything was already erected when we got there. Like when they put the poles in the ground. This is the first time I've been around farms and stuff like that. But they brought in machines to. They didn't dig holes. They drove pilings in to put up like the fences were all drove in the ground. The for the standing towers, all those were actually pilings that were drove into the ground, not holes auged or dug.
Right,
No,
like normal.
yeah. They told that we wasn't allowed to dig any kind of holes. All the sensors and stuff that we were putting out there, they had to be top ground sensors or nothing. There was no holes. There were no nothing.
I've never heard of anything like that in my life, but I know they said it's actually in the contract when they sold
It
the
is.
property to the new owner. You're not allowed to dig on the property, and they had to agree to never dig on the property. But what in the world would be some kind of reason why you can't break the topsoil? You
That was
know?
information that they didn't see we were privy to. So
Right.
we did. That was on a need to know, and we didn't need to know, so they didn't tell us. We were just told if you are caught digging, you will be fired and you will be fined if not locked up. That was exactly what we were told.
That's insane. I mean, that's just crazy as all the rest of the stuff that's going on. I mean,
Yeah, like I said, I'm telling you that. Like I said, I was so glad to leave there because that was one of the craziest. I'm talking about weirdest places to work at. And the other thing is, it was nothing to wake up and be. I'm talking about fresh and ready to go. You go
right.
out there to certain areas, and if you stayed out there longer than an hour or 2 hours at a time, it was like you'd been up on all night long drinking binges, and you would come back and all of a sudden be dehydrated, or your oxygen levels would be all screwy and crap like that.
That
That's the
almost
other
sounds like
thing.
that almost sounds like a gas leak or nitrogen.
uh,
Because when I scuba dive, those are the effects of scuba diving deep. You know.
well, I said, and the other thing is, at all times it don't make a difference who you are, if you're a janitor out there or who you are. At all times you wear radiation badges.
Okay, that's interesting.
Never had one go off or nothing like I didn't. Other people had went out in certain areas of the ranch, and they would be brought back and actually have to take radiation baths and be quarantined and stuff like
Wow,
that because and they would
just
later on
imagine.
you get to talking to them, and they would be like, man, my badge popped. He said, I got out, it was fine. I got out of the truck. I walked in front of the truck. I walked back to get in the truck. And as soon as I touched the truck door, my badge popped. And for anybody that's ever wore one of those badges, they know what I mean by it popped.
Right,
As soon as that badge got, there is no shutting it off. There is no denying that it went off or that
right,
you was exposed. That's what we
right.
call popping a badge. To anybody that's ever been around or fooled with it, they'll understand when I say the badge popped. They were exposed to tremendous radiation at one time.
Hmm. And that's
Some of them
amazing.
got really, really, really sick to the point where they had to be sent elsewhere for medical attention.
Yeah, and what could be any source or cause of that radiation? There's just no one knows.
Well, like I said, that was need to know information. Apparently, we didn't need to know. I guess we were just guinea pigs at the time walking around out there.
Apparently so.
Yeah, like I said, I was so glad to leave from there.
Or
That
food for the mini T-Rex.
yeah, well, like I said, I tell you what, that's the other thing, the sounds that you hear out there. Now think
Okay.
about you're in the middle of no. When I say in the middle, when they sick you sometimes out there over these pens, unless you have something going on, you're supposed to practice light discipline and sound discipline.
Right,
For
right.
anybody that, and for the people that don't know, that means you're not supposed to have any kind of external light, unnatural light, or whatever going on. I don't care what's going on, unless there's something you need to have it for. You're not allowed to be doing any kind of excess talking, noise making, or nothing else. You're there observing. You're supposed to be part of the environment.
Right.
You could be
Yeah.
sitting there, nothing going on, and the craziest freaking sounds, and it would sound like it was way off at 1 minute, and then all of a sudden, within a few seconds, it sounds like it's right there on top of you, and then it move here. Yeah, just all kind of wacky, crazy stuff.
Right. Yeah, that's crazy. I remember listening to an interview one time with Mr. Bigelow speaking with George Norrie on Coast to Coast AM, and he said yes, we have entities that are out there that are intelligent and they interact with us, and that's about as much as he would say about it. And he says we're observing these entities that appear to be intelligent and interact with us. But what about, any stories about people that were there that didn't believe what was going on until someone like challenged them to go do something or something like that?
Oh well,
Or
a lot of the guys. Now, I'm one of those people that if you tell me something, unless I have a definite reason why not to believe you, pretty much I'll go along with it because that's the thing in this field, especially what we're doing now, that you have to keep an open mind. Just because you never had heard of, that going on at the time, or it doesn't make sense to you, doesn't mean it didn't happen, or
right,
just doesn't mean the witness took it or that was portrayed to them at that time that way. That's the way they interpreted it. Because
right,
sometimes things can be misinterpreted, especially with fear involved and all that kind of stuff.
right,
So I was one of those ones that had an open mind. Some of the stuff was like far fetched. Like I said, the mini T-Rex thing, when he said that, the way he said it, it was because of the way he said it. And he was nonchalant about it. It was believable. And
right,
I can see the tracks. There's no, they were actual tracks by some kind of animal, creature, whatever, made those tracks in the ground, because they were impressions, and you could tell of the way it actually moved, that it was motion to it. So it wasn't, they were tracks. And like I said, the way he was just nonchalant about it, that was one of the ways, because a lot of these guys are no nonsense guys. They don't,
right,
like I said, a
right,
lot of them don't believe in that stuff, or they just don't care. And yeah, there was a lot of guys that come out there that basically quit quit good paying jobs. When I say good paying jobs, in 6 months I made what most people would make in a year.
right,
They wouldn't be there a couple of weeks and they would leave.
right,
And once you leave something like that, you don't get to go somewhere else in that field. You're done. You're out.
right.
Nobody will touch you.
Yeah,
You
it's
know
a,
it.
it's a small community. Everybody knows each other's names, and your reputation means everything. So,
Yep.
yeah, that
So, like I said, you're talking about guys that had, you know, served 2 or 3 tours over in Afghanistan and stuff like that. And like I said, basically, tough as nails. And some of them guys would just quit. It'd be too much for them to handle, too much for them to. They just couldn't. They couldn't just comprehend what was going on because it made no sense in the world that they knew before they got there. It's the easiest way. It's nothing against them. It's just, it's not for everybody. That's
Right.
just like I tell people, not if you took 100 people, put them out there and said, I want to see Bigfoot. Out of those 100 people, when if a Bigfoot walked out, probably 20 of them are going to be okay afterwards. The other, no, it's going to screw them up for the rest of their life.
Right.
That's just, and that's just a goofy number I'm throwing out there, but that's usually what happens.
Right.
You know, people, even people that go out and look for them. Oh, I just got to have an encounter, and I got to do. Be careful what you wish for, because it's usually it's not what you think it's going to be. And there are good encounters. When I say good encounters, where it's peaceful and nothing really bad happened. Those
Right.
are few and far. Those are few and far between, because these things don't want to have no actual interaction with us. They don't want to be bothered by us, and we pose a threat to them. And I believe they know that, because think about it. Let's say Bigfoot. Let's say that Bigfoot is done lived to be 60 years old, and it's probably had 10 encounters with humans over that 60 years. More than half of those are going to be bad encounters towards the Squatch, because if they had a gun, more than likely they shot at it. They tried to run it over with a car, or at least that's what the Squatch would be thinking, because it's going down the road and they hit it, or they almost hit it. You see what I'm saying? Bad.
Right.
They associate. This is my belief only. I believe after they've had a couple encounters with humans, that's all that takes, because it's nothing good comes from it, so they don't want nothing to do with us. Because
Right.
like I said, most of the time it's bad encounters.
Right.
I believe that has to do a lot with when people have bad encounters, people go missing, or they get hurt by these things. It's because, like I said, this at the particular time, this thing had already had bad encounters. It was thinking bad was going to happen regardless of what you had intended. It just didn't want to have. It just didn't want to have no interaction. And with an animal, you have one or two things that's going to happen. It's either going to run or it's going to fight.
Right.
Most of the time, they don't run.
Yeah. Most of the time they'll fight.
Yeah, most of the time they're going to fight. I don't even think about a dang even a little fox or something. They will fight.
I love what you said. Most of the time they will fight.
Yes, they're going to. Any animal that is known to science, that's going to happen. Whether deer. How many people have you ever heard of, John? You've been in around in the woods and stuff like that. How many times have you heard of deer hunters get too close to a deer or something, even a doe will jump up, buck them, and kick them, and
there's many stories of deer whipping a hunter's butt.
Yeah, now that's actually a prey animal. That's not even a predator, and it's whipping our butts because it don't want nothing to do with us. Now you take a predator that kills,
right,
and put that in that situation. That's what I tell people. If before you go out and start looking for Squatch, especially before you go out looking for Dogman, take some time to learn nature, learn what I say most science knows are out there. Learn, get in tune. Learn if you listen, every animal will let you know their intentions, or let you know they've had enough of you. You just have to be smart enough to listen to what they're telling you. Like a bad dog, if you walk up to a yard and a dog is growling and his hair's all raised up, it's probably best you slowly back up the direction you just came from.
Right.
Don't go over and try to pet it. But that's one of the bigger things I tell people. That's just like when you told me I want to learn how to track and everything. I told you, okay, I want you to understand what you're going to get involved in, because especially tracking, you don't know how far. You don't know how long. Sometimes you don't know how long it's been since an animal, especially if it's fresh, has been through there. You don't know how far in front of you that animal is. Who's to say that animal doesn't hear you and turn and get pissed off because it knows you're following it to turn around to tell you, hey, go away. Right. And usually the way they tell you to go away is not in a nice way.
Right. Exactly.
So, that's the one thing. And y'all, I don't teach people how to go find these things. There's only a handful of people that I've shared what I do and what I've taught myself and what I've learned, how to find these things, how to go out and what to look for. John is going to be a new one that I'm going to do because he asked me to. Plus, he's in the group and he wants to go out and be able to do some of these investigations because Vault is one person. Yes, I have some others that do help me that I trust with my life and they trust me with their life. But some of these places that we're wanting to put cameras, they have bad encounters attached to them. So
Right.
I don't want a landowner going out and trying to put this camera up so we can get video or pictures or something get hurt.
Right.
So, it's that's why I took it upon myself. I volunteered to be the head researcher and go out and investigate these places to see. Okay, yeah, this definitely a place we need to put a camera.
Right. Right.
And
So, Vault,
John wants to help do that. So.
On getting back to Skinwalker, is there any other crazy stories you can think of things you saw or interacted with out there, or that other people did when you were working security there?
Not that I can think of off the top of my head. If I think of anything, I can come back to it, but not off the
Sure.
top of my head right now. Let me rephrase that. Not that I can think of that I actually can talk about. There's certain things that,
Sure. Yeah,
like, there's certain areas that now that's the other thing I want to let people understand. Because of some of these areas, think about it. There's being in Area 51. There's paperwork you have to sign saying that you won't talk about stuff you saw or stuff that you know because they have places to put you that you won't talk no fucking more.
Oh yeah. I've heard stories where in military circles they put a bullet on the table and you basically have to sign a contract saying that's going in your head if you ever reveal anything you come across.
I'm not going to deny nor tell you that that's not true. I'm not going to tell you that's not true. I'm not going to tell you it is true.
Right.
We'll just
Okay,
leave it at that.
So, Vault, so you've got this vast array of experience and working in different platforms and situations around the world. What was the first time you encountered a cryptid?
The very first time I encountered a cryptid, I was a teenager.
Okay.
I was at what we call, everybody knows now that's listening to me, the people that don't know, I was on my grandmother and grandfather's farm. I call it Booger Valley to this day. My grandfather and my grandmother call it the home place. It had been in my grandmother's family for years. I was out hunting, and there's this several hundred acres of this property that butts up to a national wildlife on one side or one little corner, and then the other three corners, or it's the way it's kind of made. It's not really three; it's actually four more corners. It's like the way it's shaped all together. It's like five sides to it. If that makes any sense, because it goes down, turns, goes down. There's a creek and everything, and then it's a wildlife refuge on the other side of the creek. It turns, goes down, and turns again. It's the way it's made. It's got like five sides to it, not counting the road frontage that he owned right in there. And then it was his close neighbors and friends on the other sides that had property and farms and stuff. Well, there's one area that butts. It kind of goes back down into this. Well, that's why it's called Booger Valley. It's three hills that come down that meet up down in the bottom where a little creek goes through it that goes way back up in there and ends up going into a wildlife preserve that you're not even allowed to kill a tick on. It's owned by the government.
Huh.
Yeah, you want to get in some serious trouble, go back there and mess with something, or go back there and just cut a tree down. Yeah, yeah, that is not a good idea, because you're going to spend some time in jail and you're going to pay a bunch of money for a bush or tree or just messing around in general back there. But it's way out in the beaten path. There's not even roads that go to it off of public land. All of it's private. Anything that's accessible to it, usually that I know of, is all private. But anyway, there was an area there that several acres there that was no man's land, is what me and my cousins and all them called it. My grandfather and them did not want us in. There had never been a tree cut there as far as I knew of. It was all old growth. And when I say there's pine trees and oak trees that two grown men can't reach around, that's old growth. For some reason, you just don't go in there. You stay. That was known. Stay out. Well, I'd gotten really big into deer hunting, and I can remember all this because at the time this happened, I would just turn the year I just turned 15. That April, that December, the week we got out before Christmas, because we used to get out a week before Christmas, then it would be Christmas, we'd be out the week after Christmas, and then it would be New Year's, and we'd go back to school. The week we got out before Christmas, that Monday, I know it was. I know when it was and what year it was because of how old I was and the day it happened and the time it happened because of what everything was going on. That's why I can remember all that because my memory is not that good on some things. I had to write stuff down. But me and my cousin, had especially me, I'd gotten really big into hunting. My cousin was several years younger than I was, and I was trying to teach him. Anybody that grew up in back then, several years back. I'm not gonna say how many years because I don't want nobody. It tells off on how old Walt is, and I'm getting long in the tooth. But that's the way you learn things is you pass it down by going and teaching. That's how the next generation. And my cousin didn't have a dad, and he just wasn't in the picture. So I was at the time I was the biggest hunter that was around. I was the oldest grandkid. Me and him grew up like brothers, so it was my job to teach him what I'd done learn. Well,
Right.
I'd been patterning this one buck I'd been after for a couple of years. When I say this deer was humongous. It was so old that the coat on it had looked like it had a blue tinge to it, but it was gray, but it had a blue tinge. It had so much gray hair in it. Just monster. It looked like the base of his horns were the size of a Coke can. And just huge. I'd seen it glimpsing several years before that, and I'd made my mind up. I was going to get that deer out because we had a bet going on at school. Me and a couple other boys, who could kill the biggest buck.
Right.
And we had I think it was like $100 or so. And at the time, back then, $100 was like $1,000 now. It was some money. And I was determined. Not only did I want that money, I wanted the bragging rights, and I wanted that deer. Well, I'd patterned this deer, and I figured out that it was coming in while it was still dark on one side of this place down in there on my grandfather's property that we couldn't go, and it would come out almost on the other side, but it would be on that private on that reserve where I couldn't go. So I had to cut it off in between where it entered before it got to the refuge in the daylight hours, because you're not allowed to shoot 30 minutes before daylight or 30 minutes after daylight. Because if they hear, I'm telling you, if a game warden hears a shot, any of those in 30 minutes before or 30 minutes after, it's going to be more than him, and he's coming down there, and there's going to be it's not going to be a good day.
Right.
So my idea was, you know what? I'm going to go in there. I'm going to set up a stand. But the wind, the way I had to set the stand up to cut it off, the wind had to be just in a perfect, until it had to be just right. The wind had to be coming out of the right direction for me to get in that stand. And I had to cut it off. Well, I snuck in there and put my stand up, and several weeks had went by. I think I put the stand up actually in about the middle of October, and I didn't go back until the week before Christmas. That's how long I'd left that stand there and left it alone, because that deer had got comfortable. Nobody's bothering it. I'd done made my mind up during Christmas break. I was going to kill that deer. I was going to wait for the perfect day. Now, the stand that I put up is a ladder stand. It was a homemade stand. It was made out of drill stem pipe, like they drill water wells with.
Right.
Like I said, not light material at all. Heavy. It probably weighed a little over 100 and something pounds. Once it was set up, it was about from the bottom of the ground to where my butt sit on this seat at was about 16 feet, roughly. Set up was when I sit on top of it, you're sitting on the seat. There's no bars holding you up or around you, nothing else. Like I said, this is back before safety ever come into Vault's name, and even back then there wasn't no really safety on stuff like that when you bought it at the store. Well, I said, it's just a seat. It's a ladder with a seat on top of it, and then where I'd put my feet would be at, I'd actually added a flat spot there. That way, my cousin could sit kind of like between my knees while I'm teaching him. Oh, like I said, that Monday morning, we got up about 3:30 in the morning. We got up. I told my cousin, I know where we're going. We're going to get that big boy today. The wind is just right. By 4:15, we were out the door. I didn't have to drive nowhere. Didn't have to do nothing. All I had to do was walk out the back of my grandparents' house and walk across the property and walk down to where I'm going. That was probably, I don't know, it's probably 600 or 700 yards where we had to walk to just to get into the stand of timber that we wasn't actually supposed to be in. It took us probably 30, 45 minutes. Before 5 o'clock, I know that we were in the stand. Well before 5 o'clock. I had made sure that because I had to be in that stand well before it got daylight, because that deer would come into that stand of trees well before daylight, and it would mosey through there, and I had found where it would come out over on, like I said, that reserve property. Well, we got in there and we were sitting there, and it just started getting, where daylight, where shadows and stuff, you can see but you can't see. And about 75 yards in front of us, there's a stand of new growth pine out there. It's about 12 foot tall. And that's where that deer was supposed to come out of, to come across where this open timber was to go into the reserve. We're sitting there, and like I said, it had just started getting where you could kind of see, but there were still, dark spots and shadows and stuff like that. Well, I started seeing some of the pine trees move. At the time, I said, at the time, I had no interaction with boogers, Bigfoot, none of that stuff. Hadn't thought about it or nothing else.
Right.
I'm thinking that is that deer coming through there rubbing, because it's deer in that time, and where I'm at, it was a rut, and the way that deer rut, they rub trees and scrape trees and stuff like that, and scrape the ground. I thought it was making rubs up in all that thick stuff. Because I leaned down, like I said, I can talk to my cousin. I'm right behind when I lean down, my head is right behind his head, right behind one of his ears. And I told him, I said, I think that buck is right over in front of us, about 75 yards out. Watch the top of them trees. They kind of bounce around every once in a while, because there was no wind blowing. And the way the wind was blowing, the little breeze that was coming through was coming from down in the bottom, up the side of the hill, from the bottom to us. That way the deer wouldn't send us. And then all of a sudden the trees really got to moving. I'm thinking, wait a minute now. This didn't make sense. This deer shouldn't be moving the trees that much. And then, like I said, it looked like you could barely see something at the top of the trees, but I thought it was like a bird, squirrel, or something else. Because like I said, it's still not quite light. You could see, but like I said, you couldn't see. And it's hard sometimes to make out things, because like I said, we're 75 yards away. Well, the only binoculars I had at the time, my cousin's got, because he's using my 12 gauge. I've got my brand new 30-06 I just got that year. Matter of fact, I just got it that April for my birthday. And I've got a 3x9 scope on it, 30-06. I gave my cousin binoculars, that way he could use that. That way I could just use my scope to look through if I needed to.
Right.
Well, when the trees really, really started moving, I'm looking now through my scope trying to figure out what kind of that's got to be a massive squirrel or something up there. I thought, it's just running around on the top of those pine trees, or a hawk or something is chasing a squirrel, because they will do that. Land jumping from top of the trees trying to cut that squirrel off. I thought maybe it was something like that. And then I caught a glimpse right at the edge, just a little ways in. I caught a glimpse of hair. I knew it was hair. I was like, oh, that is that damn deer. And I'm sitting there staring at it. Now I'm trying to figure, am I looking at the butt of the deer, the front of the deer, the side of the deer? I'm trying to figure out what I'm looking at. As I'm doing that, I'm noticing deer's got some of the longest hair I've ever seen. Now all I can see now is brown, just a little spot of brown through the trees, through an opening, probably 6-inch opening at 75 yards. I'm looking through a scope at, trying to figure out what I'm looking at. And I just keep sitting there, and all of a sudden my cousin goes, "Man, what is that smell?" And then it hit me. And that is the sickenest. Think of 2-month-old rotten garbage, wet dog, skunk, all that crap mixed together with sulfur, as you know, well, not soap, but rotten eggs. Just ugh. I'm like, I don't know what the hell is. What is it? Because it wasn't there. I knew that, and I'm like, what the hell is that smell? And to the point where it stinks so bad it almost makes you. You know how you smell something that makes your stomach kind of get queasy?
Right.
That's how bad it was, and it was at a distance. I didn't realize what it was, but it was at a distance in about 75 yards. That's how bad it smelled. And why they smell that way, I don't know. But like I said, I still didn't know at the time what this smell was or what it was associated with or nothing else. I'm like, man, I still think it's the deer. I'm thinking, is that? Because deer musk when they're in heat, during the rut. And I'm thinking, damn, that deer, that is the mustiest, stinkingest deer I've ever smelled. Damn, he is bad. Well, it moved a little bit. That's when I started figuring out this is not a deer because, like I said, the hair is way longer than it should be.
Right.
Then I realized it's way taller than it should be. Where I'm seeing the hair at,
right.
Because I'm looking through these trees and I'm thinking.
And this turned out to be the Bigfoot or the booger.
Yeah, it turned out to be a really, really big one. What I saw moving and bouncing around on top of them trees was actually the top of his head, just barely poking out of the top of them trees.
Right.
And
it finally
that was my experience. That was my first. Yeah, that was my first experience. Like I said, I actually told this story multiple times.
Right.
Not just recently, but it's been told multiple times. Okay. And it wound up being a squatch, and my cousin accidentally, for some reason, the way he was sitting, he had the weapon. His right hand is on the butt, and where he can get to the trigger. His left hand has got the forearm. And I told him, I said, the way he's sitting, he couldn't point at this thing because, like I said, by this time it's done stepped out, and I can actually see what the hell I'm looking at, and it's freaking me the hell out because that ain't supposed to be there. The first thing that popped in my head was Chewbacca is in my fucking woods. Excuse my language. That is the first, because it hadn't been long that Return of the Jedi had come out, and we went to the theater to see that not too long, a couple of weeks before that.
Right.
But then I got to thinking, if that's somebody in a Chewbacca outfit, that is the biggest person. I ain't never seen a person around here that big. You think of Andre the Giant big is, they had to be bigger than him in a Chewbacca outfit.
Right.
And after I got to, this thing was, the top of its head, like I said, you could see it. Now, I don't know if it was walking on tops of humps or hills or whatever, but every once in a while you could see the top of its head come up just a wee bit above the top of those trees. And most of those trees were 12 foot tall. I believe this thing was anywhere from 9 to a little over 10 foot.
Wow.
Because, like I said, when my cousin went to swap hands so he could actually point his weapon at this thing, because I told him, I said, swap hands so you can put your aim at that thing. If it runs at it, empty the gun. Because this thing is massive. I'm talking about massive. It's probably, at the time, I didn't, I'm not thinking of judging how massive something is, but I bet you it was over 4 foot across from shoulder to shoulder. Like I said, just massive. Wow. Well, and I'm pointing a 30-06 at it in a scope. I'm looking, like I said, I can see really good. As he turns his weapon, the barrel of that deadgum gun bumps that one of those metal legs on that stand, and it sounds like a bell, like clink.
Yep.
And as soon as that happened, this thing now, it's sniffing and smelling the air. it figured. I didn't know at the time, but thinking back, it knew we were in there. It just didn't know where we were or what we were up to. But it was smelling the air. As soon as that thing at barrel hit, dude, is like you drew a line right to us. He looked, and you could see in his, because I'm looking at it through a scope. The determination in his eyes went to just, I'm going to kill you, is what I'm thinking. And he let out one of the loudest, think of being at the zoo and every animal in the predator in there just growled, howled, and roared.
Right.
You could feel it in your chest. This thing barrels off up the hill, and I have no idea to this day, because my cousin don't like to talk about it. I don't know if he accidentally or whatever, he fired off a round out of that shotgun.
Yeah. Oh no.
I do not believe he hit it, because I believe the first round that he had chambered, because we had it combat loaded. Mm-hmm. At the time we used to call it redneck loading back when I was a kid, because what we do is we put a buckshot, a slug, a buckshot, a slug, a buckshot, up to 5 rounds. Well, it was 5 in the chamber, 5 in the tube, and 1 in the chamber. It was 6 rounds. So you had 3 slugs and 3 buckshot. And reason why is because at about anywhere from 0 to 25 yards plus 40 yards, that buckshot would pretty much, a double aught 3-inch buckshot would pretty much, you got 12 pellets the size of a 9mm. It's pretty much going to take care of a deer. Right. Anything past that 1 ounce pumpkin slug, phosphorus slug, I mean, we call them pumpkin slugs. Phosphorus slug, it is good out to 100 yards, maybe 120 yards. It's going to knock it down. I believe the first round was actually buckshot. I do not think he hit it, but it did really. If it wasn't pissed off before, it was really pissed off now. And I cranked off a round. I know I hit it. I just don't know where I hit it, because I had my scope turned all the way up to 9 power. And by the time I looked back through my scope and fired, all I could see is brown. All I could see is hair, because it done close, dude. It closed 75 yards distance uphill so freaking fast. I got off 1 round. When it came at us, I guess because I'd hit it, kind of determined, it kind of wanted it changed what it was. I don't know what it would have done if I wouldn't have hit it or shot or whatever, but it come by us and swatted and kept going. And when it swatted, it literally broke the legs of that metal deer stand, that drill pipe, like twigs right under where my cousin's feet were.
Wow.
So it was all, it was able to reach almost 12 feet up in the air and just break drill stem pipe like they were twigs. Well, you know yourself, with a ladder stand, when the legs go out from under it, the rest of it's going to the ground.
Going down.
Well, when we hit the ground, and rolled, left everything. Everything. Right. It was no, trying to fight or shoot. No, I didn't even realize or remember having a gun in my hand. I was gone. We left everything and booked it back.
Story. We left everything and ran.
Yeah. I'm talking about there was no thinking, I got a gun, I'm going to know. We hit the ground and I'm thinking, we got to go. Feet don't fail me now. And my little cousin, it was like a crackhead on Supernova. He done beat me. I think his feet were moving before he hit the ground.
Right.
He just run off and left me, and we were, like I said, we were determined to get. It didn't take us. It took us about 45 minutes to get to the stand. It probably took us about 6 minutes to get back to the house.
Right. So you even at a young age were aware of the fact that cryptids are real and that they exist.
Oh yeah.
What was the first time you came across any other type of cryptid after that?
I know I was over 18. I don't know how to say where I was without getting in trouble, but where I was somewhere. This is during the time I was working as a contractor. I've actually told this story a little bit, went into detail. Have y'all ever heard of the giant pythons?
Yeah, in Africa, and not only that, but Florida.
Well, no, this is in a This is in a tropical area that has a mountain that has actually what they call the hidden lake. We were in an area there. We were dropped off well before that, and we had to walk in or hump in to a certain location because there was supposed to be some activity that somebody didn't want somebody else doing.
Okay.
And all we were supposed to do was gather intelligence. That was it.
Right.
We were being paid not to fight anybody. We were there to gather intelligence. So we were trying to be as stealthy as possible. We got dropped in the middle of the night and was supposed to walk about, I think to my knowledge, for some reason, it was like 7 or 8 clicks. We had to walk up the side of this freaking mountain, get to a vantage point to look down and observe down off in this other valley. Well, we are going down through there, and it's probably a couple of hours before daylight. It's dark. It is dark. I'm talking about you can't hardly see your hand in front of your face. You don't get to use no light or nothing because, like I said, we're supposed to be stealthy. We're not even supposed to be there. Well, me and the person I'm with, we decide, hey, before we get up here and get into position, let's get some chow in us and rest up just a little bit, and take care of any motherly nature things we need to take care of, because once we get in position, and if we can see them, they could possibly see us. Is what you want to realize. If you're observing somebody, even if you're in cover or whatever, you need to always think that they could possibly see you. So you don't want to move, draw any attention or nothing else. So, like I said, we're taking a break, probably, I don't know, an hour before we actually get to the position that we're supposed to set up. Well, we come up on this nice sized log laying there, and the person that's with me actually throws his pack down against the log, and he kind of lays down. It kind of sits down on the ground and leans back against his pack and everything. He's pulling some MREs out of his pack and everything. I actually straddle, take my pack, sling it around, sit it on the ground beside me, and I'm straddling this log. Well, I reach over on my left side and grab my K-bar, snatch it out, and I done grabbed a MRE, and I can't get the freaking pack to tear like it's supposed to, like usual. So I'm just going, barely put a slit across the top at the very top of it, and open it up. When I do that, and I just jab my K-bar into the trunk. There's no reason why I'm trying to put it back in its sheet. I'm probably going to use it again. I jab it in the trunk of this tree. The tree rolls and takes off.
Oh no! With your K-bar.
Oh yeah, with a K-bar in it. We didn't realize until after it took off, and when it takes off. Now you think about it, we're sitting on something that's probably, well, I said think of your truck tire. Mm-hmm. I'm sitting on it with my legs spraddled, like I'm sitting on a horse.
Right.
This thing rolled, and as it rolled, it actually rolled over top of the guy that I'm with. It rolled over top of his pack and almost squished him. He had to roll out of the way. And like I said, this thing takes off, slithering up through the woods, because I just stuck this knife in it. Right. And like I said, it takes off and kind of as it rolls and takes off, it throws me off. Well, the person that's with me sees a head. He said the head would look like it was the size of a hood of a Buick. Is exactly his words.
Wow.
Like I said, remember, we're supposed to be sneaking into an area, observing and being quiet. Well, he has a Mini 14. He cuts loose with that freaking Mini 14 on this thing, just shooting. And as the report, as it goes off, it's got that long bird cage flash hider. You can see everything's kind of lighting up. And like I said, that's when we realized it is a snake the size of your car tire. How long it was, I cannot tell you. It was too hard to judge that. But that was the biggest freaking. I didn't know snakes got that big.
Right. Yeah. That sounds.
I didn't see it. I didn't see its head. But the guy that was with me said it looked like the head of it was the size of a hood on a Buick. Park Avenue.
That's crazy.
I didn't get to see the head. All I seen was the body, and the color of what I could tell, it actually looked kind of copperish looking. But like I said, What I'm seeing is through the muzzle flash of him reporting his rifle, and I'm slapping him beside the head because now I'm thinking he's fixing to bring down a whole bunch of heat and trouble on us. This thing is already going away from us. It's actually going down the valley toward just what they call the hidden lake, towards the direction we're supposed to be observing. So it's their problem. Oh no, he makes it our problem. We didn't make it to our designation area, and we had to fall back to a last resort LZ. That was an ass chewing and a half we got for that. But that was one. That was another crazy one that I haven't run across it before. Mm-hmm. Never thought I'd ever run across it. Wasn't even looking for it. That's just something that happened.
Right.
I don't know if you consider that a cryptid or what, but like I said, I did not know snakes would get that big.
Right. So what would be your next cryptid encounter?
Besides, like I said, I've had, I don't know how many, man, I've had so many encounters with what I call boogers. Most people call Bigfoot, Sasquatch. They got so many freaking different names. It's unreal. I've seen this. Go ahead. I actually got to see the shadow of supposedly a thunderbird.
Okay.
All I know is it wasn't a plane. It was some kind of, no, it was up in the air. It come over us. That's what I'm saying. The shadow, it shadowed us out.
Okay.
But the way it shadowed us out, it was going into the sun, and I barely caught a glimpse of it.
Right.
And there was a plane that came by right after it. Like it was following it. The damn bird. That's what I'm saying. I believe it was that because the way I was looking and the way it looked up in the sky with a plane behind it, it looked like the bird was the same size as the plane. Yes, it was a bird because it was flapping its wings. Planes don't flap wings.
Yeah, right.
What I saw behind it was a plane. I don't know what kind of jet it was. It was a jet, and it was following it. And that's the thing. It was in front of the jet. The jet hadn't caught up to it yet, and it was as big as the jet.
But like what about little people?
Yeah, I've come across. I don't know. So much of that is, like I said, there's so many different names for them. You've got puck wedgies. You got the little people. There's some of them things out there that look like, think of Smeagol.
Okay.
That's the easiest way I can describe. I don't know what the hell they are.
Right.
I've come across when I got older and got involved in more with my grandfather and what he kind of used to do. And for the people that don't know, my grandfather actually was a shaman. He's Blackfoot. He was a shaman for his tribe, not the main shaman. That's the other thing. There actually are more than one shaman usually in a tribe, because if they only had one and he died, they're screwed. That's a misconception that most people don't know. And when you tell them, that's like, no, there's only one. No, if there's only one, if he died, when he dies, the whole tribe's screwed. There's actually many. They're in different stages of training and stuff.
Right.
Well, my grandfather, like I said, he was a shaman for the Blackfoot, his Blackfoot tribe. He would go out and, like I said, I'm not a shaman. Don't pretend to be a shaman. I know enough to get myself in trouble with a lot of that stuff. He did teach me a lot, but there's a lot that what he taught me is a thimbleful of knowledge, is the way I look at it. That, if you have this going on, you do this to either make it go away or to appease it, dude, I've seen some, I don't know, I've seen some things running around in the woods that don't make any sense other than what he told me it was. It had to be that, because it wasn't any kind of other animal I've ever seen, because it was running around. Go ahead.
Tell me about your encounter with little people.
Oh, that's what I'm talking about. But most of the time, it's the encounters with the little people weren't. I'm talking about, it wasn't like we went out and tracked them down. It was, they were causing a problem for somebody else in the tribe in some kind of way. You go out there and you sit and you wait. And that was at that time in my life when I was doing it with my grandfather, that was the hardest part because I'm not a sit here and kind of wait kind of person.
Okay.
Uh, anybody that knows anything about me knows that. Well, you sit there, you wait. And if there are little people, usually put wedges, little people, brownies, sprites, whatever you want to call them, they're mischievous. That's the thing that most people don't know. They're mischievous, unless they're I think it's pup wedges. Pup wedges actually will try to kill you. They will try to push you off cliffs and stuff like that. Most of the time, the stuff that's out there is what it's wanting is wanting interaction with you because it's wanting you to acknowledge it to give it power. That's how it gets power, is acknowledgement. Whether that's good acknowledgement, bad acknowledgement, they're going to get you to acknowledge them. Well, you sit there long enough, if there's some around there, they want you to interact with them. And the worst thing you can do is ignore them because
Right.
they will really let themselves be known.
You
And
told me one time about being called in on some site, I think near Washington, where a crew was clearing out trees, and all these little things are running out from the trees.
that was one of them. And like I said, I still believe those were put wedges. I believe actually they were put wedges and what some people call brownies all together. Because I
Okay.
don't know if there's this the thing. I don't know if they're actually different, but they aren't different. But I know that the way some of the stuff that they said, like this one logger was in the middle of cutting a tree and his chainsaw got hung. So he walked away from where the tree was to walk up to grab another saw to cut his saw out. Well,
Right.
when he got back, his saw had been messed with. And as he bent over to mess with the saw, these things were up in the trees, bouncing up and down like they were trying to get it to topple over while he's standing under it.
Hmm.
And like I said, there's ways to make them. I'm not going to go into that because, like I said, I don't teach people how to do that right there.
Sure.
If you've got a problem on your place, there are certain things you can do. I don't go into detail about those on
Right.
the air, and if I help you, it's going to be because I trust you enough. When I do this, you're not going to go start running around because this could cause. These can also cause, if you do it in the wrong way, or let's just put it that way: if you do it in the wrong way, these things that will make them stop could also make it escalate.
Right. Right. Well, let me ask you this question. Uh, Being from the contractor world, amongst contractors, when you're talking amongst yourselves or any kind of training or debriefing or anything like that, is there common talk about knowledge of cryptids among contractors?
Not per se.
Okay.
Like I said, now you got to think about something. Anybody that's ever served your unit or the
Mm.
guys you stay with most of the time that you're going to be, because that's the way. That was a unique thing with what we did was we stayed as a tight unit. It was the same guys nearly all the time. Every once in a while, if somebody left, whether it was because they died, and that happened a lot.
Right.
I lost a lot of friends. Like I said, if they died or for some reason they just left, if we needed like a tech guy or something like that, and we didn't have one at the time, they would bring in somebody else. Every so often, that person would be permanently assigned to us. But usually, like I said, that's how I got the name Vault. It wasn't because I just picked it or was given it. That was given to me by my teammates, all of
Right.
us.
Right.
Anybody that's ever served, you get nicknames.
Yep.
And then, and the other thing is, we weren't allowed to go by our real names, but especially like when we worked on the border and stuff like that,
Mhm.
because you don't want that name. You don't know who's listening and when they're listening. You don't want names to pop up because that's intelligence they're gathering against you and who you're working for.
Right.
So I got given the name Vault because wherever we go, one of the things to pass, you know how it is, to pass the time.
Hmm.
You got downtime or whatever. Some of the locals come around, start, helping it. I don't care where you go, what you're doing. There's always going to be some locals come around, usually especially younger people, to help you out or be interested or just excited to see what you're doing and the guys doing and all the equipment and stuff. Well, I'd always be the one standing around with literally a little notepad. Hey, have you ever seen any kind of weird stuff or stuff you just couldn't explain? Just and one of the guys was like, man, how do you keep up with all them notes? You must have a big old vault back home that you put all these notes in.
Yeah.
That's how I got the name Vault Keeper.
Right.
I said it probably sounds kind of stupid and weird to a lot of people. That's how I got the name Vault Keeper. It's because, like I said, this little stuff, because, like I said, it interests me, and because of the background I came up in, because I came up in a non-traditional Abrahamic religion household, which means that we didn't go to church and stuff like that because it's not the religion that I was raised in. Now, I know that may upset some of your listeners or whatever, and I hope you don't think bad of me, or whatever. I'm no different than you. A lot of people don't realize that a lot of the other religions are really more closely related than you really want to believe. Me and Mr. John has talked about that before.
Yeah, well, everybody comes from such very different backgrounds and religions that it's commonplace now to have people that come, from different backgrounds with different belief systems. So
yeah, and like I said, it was to me it was funny, because, like I said, when I grew up and learned about books, I thought they were everywhere.
Right.
When I got older and got away from the homestead and figured out that these things, when everybody's like laughing and joking, you start talking about this hairy, tall creature that could rip your freaking arms off or rip a barn door off or tear your house down around you. It is not common everywhere else. It was like, really? They're making fun of people and stuff, and I'm thinking, dude, that's that shit's true.
Right.
And to them, it's like, I can remember the first time it come. I forgot where exactly we were, but this show come on called what was the name of that show? Not Leonard Nimoy, but what was that guy? Unsolved Files, whatever it was.
Mysteries.
Yeah, that's it. This thing come up about Bigfoot, and they were showing the Patterson Gimlin film or bits and pieces of it, and they were talking about Bigfoot. And a lot of the other guys was like, "Oh man, that bull crap." And I was like, "What do you mean bull crap?" Yeah, that's a booger.
Right.
I'm thinking, and that's when I started realizing these things aren't normal everywhere else. Everybody else don't believe in them, and they don't have the same beliefs. People don't believe that there are things that go bump in the night out there, and if you go messing with it, you probably won't come back.
Right.
There are evil spirits. There are negative spirits. There are spirits that never were a human or never were an animal and are just bad in general.
Right. Like you got the skinwalkers and the Wendigos.
Yep. And then you got a thing called a Nawarin. Yeah, I don't want to go into talking about those, or kind of like on the air. So many people listening and getting to think about it. It's actually think of the Slender Man.
Okay.
It actually was a made up thing that was brought into existence by enough people thinking and talking and reacting with this thing that brought something that's not supposed to be here to our plane.
Now that's some craziness, but that's exactly what seems to have taken place.
Yeah, that's the only way that can be, logically and scientifically, that is the only way you can describe that.
Now, is that similar to what happened with the rake, or no?
Yeah, I do believe.
Because the rake started off as just an online story like creepypasta, but there are so many people who claim that they're seeing encounters of exactly something that fits that description.
That's what I was going to say. It fits close enough to the description. Either it is that, or it is something is being misidentified that is not known. Because that happens a lot. Now, I hope we get to talk about this, about misidentified Bigfoot, that I believe that because you can go back and read these reports. It's not just me talking about them. You can go back from the 70s when they first started coming out and stuff like that. Misidentified, I believe Bigfoot. You got Bigfoots that are described with like a bear-shaped face or a lion-shaped face, or even the sheep squatch.
Yep,
What if
some of the
these are,
best, some of the
yeah,
best Bigfoot material. I mean, Dogman material I've found have been where people are claiming they're Bigfoots.
yeah, well, until I figured out about Dogman, I thought they were just misshapen Bigfoot.
So that's what I
Now,
wanted to get to. How did
that
you how did you come across and find out about Dogman?
accidentally, like I said, I'm not sure about the year. I'd have to go back and ask Miss Lakea because Miss
Sure.
Lakea was with me.
Right.
We actually were coming back from one of my family's Christmas to where,
I'm calling it there. And I hope that people are like, no, wait, he was just getting into a story. To leave a little like cliffhanger. Um, but we're at 2 hours and there's still an hour and a half. And I got church in the morning, so I can't stay up late. So I'm gonna have to do a part two. Besides, I'm trying to cut shows to be a little bit smaller now anyway, because that's fitting the algorithms better. But I'm gonna air the part two next. But in typical Vault fashion, he talks for 2 hours and we don't even get to the story that's the topic of the night. That blows me away. We haven't even he just was starting to get into his story for the first time of what the topic of the show was for tonight. but anyway, yeah, I'm gonna have to cut it there, and because like I said, there's still at least an hour and a half, if not more, left to the story, just from that point, and I want to reserve everything fresh, just for hitting that story because it is one of my favorite stories, and I'm so glad a buddy of mine recovered this show for me and sent it to me, and I'm able to re-air it because I feel like it was taken from me, and I'm glad to have it back on my channel because I loved it. And too, like many of you have said, boy, I can't tell you what a pleasure it was just to sit back and listen to Vault doing the interview. I've missed that so much with him being gone. He said for those not in the chat room, he said that because of his health issues, he's had 2 strokes. He put that out there, and he's going to have procedures to try to prevent that from taking place again, but it's getting real serious and he's got to put his health first. And so he stepped back and he's saying he's not going to come back to do more interviews and to bring his show back, even though a lot of fans are, upset about that. We will love and miss Vault for that. And I certainly miss all the times that we co-hosted and hung out. And I can't tell you what a pleasure it was tonight just to listen to that older episode. So, and I can't wait to drop the next one. But anyway, everybody keep Vault in your prayers. He's gonna have to have there's a surgery he's trying to get done that's needed. So please, and it's a dangerous surgery. So please keep that in your prayers. Him and Kat. And that everything is successful with that, and we'll see how his health goes in the future, and who knows what can happen. But if not, I will definitely be bringing back on the part two, and I wish I had other episodes where I had Vault on as a guest or co-hosted that I could bring back and re-air because it's just a absolute pleasure to listen to that and his stories. He's my favorite guest I've ever had. He's the favorite one on the channel, good or bad. He's the one that people come listen to the most. Even the ones that hate him come listen to him. I'm like, yeah, okay, great. But yeah, his stories are just like, yeah, I stuck my knife in this tree and damn, if it wasn't a giant snake, it just took off. And I'm like, hey, my knife. Or why is that tree slithering away? Or wait, come again? You said what? The T-Rex is back. Well, you can't just say that like it's nothing and walk off. What the hell's wrong with you? I mean, or yeah, we're cutting a tree and all these little creatures come running out of it. I mean, that is just classic, great stuff. And I'm so glad. I asked Vault earlier if he would mind if I aired this interview, and he said no problem. I'm really glad he said yeah, because I just enjoyed the heck out of it. And Kat talked about how much she enjoyed, listening to it again. Boy, and I just miss all the times of us co-hosting. Did I say that already? Well, I do. But anyway, I'm gonna cut it there. I hope everybody enjoyed one of my favorite episodes ever. And like I said, I'm so glad to be able to re-air it on my new channel. And I've got some other ones I can re-air too. I'm not going to do it all at once, but I'm excited about some of those too. One is about Skinwalker Ranch. I actually tried to reach out to the guy that I did the interview with for Skinwalker Ranch, and he did not want to come back on again. He said it was a stretch for him to come on the first time. He felt like he did what he had to do, and he didn't want to come back. But I have the video similar to this one. It was an audio at that time, and at some point I'll put that back on there where we just go into all the lore of Skinwalker Ranch. But boy, I tell you, with Vault hitting up his stories about that, that was crazy. I'm telling you that the T-Rex is back. That blows me away. Plus all the high craziness. Now I just heard a story recently from a kid who said he went to Skinwalker Ranch, and just recently, and he said that he was in the state for a day with like a friend of his, and they had nothing to do, so they figured they'd go there and just take a picture. And he said that when they got there, they were challenged by like black Suburbans, security guards, telling them to leave. And he said at that very moment, an orb showed up and looked like it was probing everybody there, and then took off. And then the security guards' attitudes changed, and like, dude, you got to like come in here now and let us interview you to document what just took place, because you're witnesses, like outsider witnesses to the story. And the kids were like, no, dude, we just saw some crap we weren't supposed to see, and they're inviting us in and being nice so they can knock us off and make us disappear. They're like, I don't think that. We're sorry, we'll never come back again. We just want to leave. We didn't see nothing. And the guards are like, no, seriously, we need to document this. You saw everything. We need that recorded for our research. We're investigators. You got to come do that for our research. And then the kids are like, no, it's all right. That's okay. Thank you very much. Had fun. And the investigators are like, look, we'll let you ride around the property. We'll bring you on a tour. We'll even give you a vehicle and let you go anywhere you want. Just come, let us document this for our research. It was really funny. It was hilarious. Funny story. But anyway, like I said, so I'm going to cut it here. I hope everybody enjoyed the show. I certainly did. And we'll pick it up next week. I'll drop the part 2. So unless I get there's some guests I'm waiting on that just when they're free, and if they're free, I got to jump on that at that moment. I can always play this second part anytime. So if some of those guests come up, I'll have to do a show with them, and then I'll just release it the next time. But if not, I'll release this next week for the part 2 of the famous, legendary Vault of Nightmares. All right, everybody. Have a good night. Thanks for coming. Keep the lights on.